Call to order this meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees on this, the 4th of December, 2017. Would everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hogan, would you take roll, please?
Mayor Kaiser.
Here.
Trustee Bornstein.
Yes.
Trustee Kuzma.
Here.
Trustee Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Medlicott.
Here.
Trustee Murphy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Here.
We have before us the consent agenda. Any requested modifications, questions, comments? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan, would you take roll, please?
Trustee Bornstein.
Yes.
Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Medlicott.
Here. Yes.
Trustee Elliott.
Yes.
Trustee Kuzma.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Yes.
Mayor Kaiser.
Yes. The motion passes 7-0. Mr. Manning, ordinance 22-2017, approving the annexation.
Good evening, Board. You should have some recollection of having seen this before earlier in the year. This is an annexation, simultaneous zoning to plan development, and along with plan development zoning, we need at least a sketch plan. This applicant has decided to submit a preliminary PD site plan, which will give you a lot more detail. You got the clicker?
It's right here, Larry.
Different order, but it's okay. We'll go. Up here where the site is, first of all, I'll give you a general description. That's a little over 34 and almost 35 acres. It's south of the Wagon Gap Trail existing residential neighborhood, east of the railroad, west of Old Denver Road. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a part of the Walnut Center across the freeway. So we're north of Baptist Road a little ways and north of the ice facility, ice skating facility. This is the surrounding zoning. You can see south, east, and even in the northwest up here we have industrial zoning. Directly north again is that Wagon Gap Trail residential neighborhood. This gives you an idea of the general layout of the site. There's a couple of access points on Old Denver Road. One to the north, one to the south. It creates a loop road with a short cul-de-sac. That's intended to be a public road. The townhomes, which are in the south part of the development, are on what we call alleys. So they access off of an alley type of road, obviously paved. And that would be to the rear of the townhomes where the garages are. The front of the townhomes then are on a strip of open space with sidewalks and landscape. To the north of the townhomes is a private park area, about 2.5 acres. Southwest is a drainage pond where the drainage from this entire site will go and be detained. And then north, about half the site, is an open space area composed of some floodplain and mouse habitat, and that will remain open space. I want to go back to annexation for a second. Again, I mentioned we saw this earlier this year. The board did pass a resolution which determined that this property was eligible under Colorado state statutes for annexations, and set this public hearing at a time when the balance of the request, that would be the zoning and the PD site plans you're looking at, could accompany it at one time. Okay, let me go back to this a second. We're talking about 131 residential units in total. 54 of those units are what's called attached single family, duplex type format, 2 homes on 2 lots common lot line and wall down the middle. 77 units will be townhome type units. I already talked about the loop road, and the alleys, and the rest of the open space situation. So the terms of the annexation agreement, if you've looked at it, it's somewhat long, has a lot of legalese. Alicia has been working hard with the applicant to get that the way we both feel like it should be. And I wanted to highlight just a few things that I think are important in there. The water service will be by the town. You can see by the blue line on the right, that's a 12-inch water main that already passes the site. So that'll be by Town of Monument. They will dedicate a well site as well as pay a water impact fee. A wastewater service then will be Monument Sanitation, and I drew a little brown line going up to the northwest. That's the direction that'll have to be pumped up there to the facility. And then the open space in this annexation agreement will reduce their park fee requirement in half, which is a part of the ordinance allowance. And what that will result in through the calculations is about a $560 park fee collected upon each unit's being issued a land use permit. The last thing is they would like the ability to have a metropolitan district, and that of course will have to be something that you subsequently take a look at and are satisfied with the terms of. This is just another picture of the site. These bold lines, the little straight lines, are the actually the change in topo, which there really is very little cut and fill here. And it all slopes currently towards the southwest corner and will continue to slope towards the southwest corner. This is a picture of the townhomes, what they would look like. Again, we're talking about a preliminary PD site plan. The final decisions on what all this looks like will be at the final PD site plan stage, but that will be in substantial compliance with what we're looking at tonight. This would be the attached homes. And so this went to the Planning Commission on November 8th. The staff did recommend approval with some considerations or conditions. The Planning Commission is recommending approval with those same considerations. So with that, what staff told the PC they felt about this request was that it should be approved on the basis that the annexation complies with the comprehensive plan and is in the best interest of the town. The plan developed zoning is appropriate, and the PD site plan meets criteria for approval with a few concerns, which I mentioned. I'll go over here in a minute. So this shows graphically some of those considerations. Number one, which is shown in a red line going to the drainage area. Phase one is shown in that dark blue rectangular shape. Terminating where it does at the west end of that road, there'll need to be a temporary mechanism to get that stormwater down to the drainage facility until phase two is constructed. Number two is we'd like to see a consideration of a crosswalk to go across to the county recreational trail on the other side of Old Denver. That does have to take into account some traffic concerns, turning movements, so we're not sure where it might be, but we want to make sure that it's contemplated in the final PD site plan. We'd also like to see phase one include a part of the park area. As you can see by the bold dashed blue line, it doesn't currently. We'd like to see that include some of that park area being developed at the time it is built. Utility easement, that's on the west end, number 4 there of the townhomes. And that purpose of that is to allow us to loop water and or wastewater, if it's deemed appropriate, from the south end. Number 5 is a reconsideration of the turn lane configuration. Basically, their traffic report requires there be a turn lane in a northbound direction on the south entrance. get that designed appropriately. It has some conflicts with the driveways to the south that we think need to be looked at and see whether we can come up with something that's a little bit better. The last thing is any other issues raised during the final PD site plan. We'll let you know what we think those are at that point in time. So Planning Commission recommends approval with these considerations. And if you have any questions at this time, the applicant will have a detailed presentation as well if you want to wait and see that. But if you have any questions at this time, I'll answer it.
I just have one question. And again, it looks like a great development. My only question is, with the experience we've encountered over months and a couple of years, why a metro district?
I'd let them address that. That's an opportunity they wanted to have. And so I'm sure they'll have the answers for it and what they might want to use it for. I know that the construction of the wastewater pumping station is a considerable expense that might be incorporated into that kind of a funding mechanism.
Always what you have those things. Thank you.
All right, let's have the applicant come and do their presentation, and then after they've presented, Mr. Manning, if you can join, and we'll ask additional questions at that time.
Good evening, trustees. My name is Andrea Barlow with NES, Planning and Landscape Architects in Colorado Springs. And I am going to present the case for the application on behalf of the developer. I'll try to skip over some of the duplicative stuff, so we're not repeating everything Larry's just said to you. Location, I think he covered pretty well. We've got the ice rink to the south, Wagons Gap, Trails End neighbourhood to the north, and I-25 to the east. We're looking at annexing, rezoning the property, and approval of a preliminary PD site plan. Just getting into a little bit more of the detail. Teach Out Creek runs east-west across the property. That area that's in the dashed line either side of the creek is actually the mouse habitat. We had that surveyed as part of this project, and that was agreed with the Colorado Department of Fish and Wildlife, and we have that boundary approved, and we are legally required to stay out of that boundary with any development proposed. And so that's why all the development here is concentrated in the southern part of the site. Of the almost 35 acres of the site, 16.5 acres are going to be retained as natural open space in that area. We are quite some distance from the nearest residential properties, about 550 feet to the north and over 600 feet to the single family residence to the west. And we are proposing, as Larry indicated, 2 points of access off Old Denver Road. I'll come back to those in a lot more detail. 131 new homes, 54 attached single family, 77 townhomes in 3-plex and 4-plex formats. The main street looping through the site is to be a public street, and the private alleys, which the townhomes will be serviced from, have been discussed and approved by Tri-Lakes and Monument Fire Department for meeting their access requirements. We had a number of discussions with them, and they're satisfied that they meet their requirements. We're going to have a 2.5 acre centrally located open space with trails through the development. The detention in the southwest corner is located because that's where the site naturally drains to. And as indicated previously, we will have a lift station to provide sanitary sewer service, and well sites which will be dedicated to the town so that they have access to the water beneath the property when they require it in the future. We will also have a northbound left turn lane into the southern access of the site. We will happily work with the town to resolve any conflicts that they feel there might be with driveway accesses to the south. That came as a comment on the initial review of the plans. We thought we had addressed that by reducing the taper of that left turn lane, but if there's still issues to discuss, we're happy to continue discussing that provision. As Larry indicated, it will be in 2 phases. We are showing the 63 townhomes initially with the detention pond and the lift station. We are okay with the conditions that Larry suggested to provide to ensure that we can actually get to the detention pond with the storm pipes, and also to provide a phasing of the park with phase 1. Regarding the Metro District, the reason a Metro District is needed is twofold. We would be looking at for raising bonds to construct the lift station. This is an extremely expensive project, the lift station itself, and also the connection to the existing Monument Sanitation District lift station to the north. And also the maintenance of the open space and all the other open space areas in the development will be maintained and owned and maintained by the Metro District. There will also be potentially also an HOA, but some of the, possibly either the Metro District or an HOA combination that will control the maintain the exterior of the townhomes, and also implement the development and design standards for the project. Those components will come out in the final PBC site plan. So this preliminary plan is really just showing you the general concept of what's being proposed. Moving on to give you a little bit more information on the product, the single family attached. We are looking at the architecture that has been prepared as this product has not actually been constructed yet, but it will be in earth tones. There will be varied architectural details. The product will be 2-story. They'll all have 2-car garages with 2-car driveways, individual lots with yards, and 2 or 3 bedrooms, and it gives you some information about the approximate size of the buildings, and also the price range is in that $260,000 to $280,000, and they're trying to attract in that type of product the empty nesters and move up families. Slightly different for the townhomes. Again, the pictures you're seeing here are from Gold Hill Mesa and in Colorado Springs. The colours there are probably not representative of the colours that we would be looking at in Monument. We'll be looking for more, again, the earth tones, and something that would be agreeable to the town. Again, varied architectural details, 2 stories, 2-car garages. About 60% of them have 2-car driveways. We also have some parking on the site plan, you may have noticed that. And a range of sizes, and a slightly lower price range, $230,000 to $250,000, and that's looking at more the young professionals and young families coming in there, as well as some empty nesters as well. That's just showing you the rear view of the typical garage detail. It's showing that there is some architectural detailing on the back of the properties as well as the front, and the example of some of them having driveways and others without. So just to go to the comprehensive plan, dealing first of all with the annexation component. It is in an area, that beige-orange area on the plan is the area that's proposed for annexation in the comprehensive plan. And that in the comprehensive plan indicates that the town should reasonably consider annexation of properties in that urban growth area, and some of the considerations to take into account would whether there be sufficient municipal services to accommodate the project, whether it's generally consistent with other components of the comprehensive plan, and whether it qualifies under the Colorado revised statutes. And that was the consideration at the earlier hearings, that it did qualify. So we're really down to just looking at the two of whether it is placing an economic burden on services or comprehensive plan compatibility. So here are some of the things we looked at in terms of whether it meets that requirement of not burdening municipal services. There are sufficient water rights underneath the property to accommodate the number of homes that are proposed here. We've got 131 units, and that would require just over 49 acre-feet per year, where the supply in total is about 61 acre-feet per year. So that is available. And as part of the annexation agreement, as Larry indicated, we are transferring the water rights to the town and providing well sites so that they can access that water in the future. We also have agreement from Monument Sanitation that we can connect to their services. Obviously, we have to provide the lift station, as mentioned, but we have to and also go through the annexation process with the sanitation district. But those facilities are available, and we also, through the lift station, will be able to provide improved service to the Monument ice rink to the south, which I know they're very excited about because it could allow them to provide additional ice rinks. In terms of consistency with the comprehensive plan more generally, part of the site is identified for parks, trails and open space, and as we've indicated, we've identified 16 plus acres as open space. Unfortunately, because it is mouse habitat, you can't have trails going through it, so we don't meet that trail component in that area, but we have provided trails through the development itself. Also, part of the property is identified as mixed use, together with the pink area that you see. That is all shown as mixed use on the comprehensive plan. So we have some mix of uses within our project itself, with the two different types of residential, but then obviously there's recreational industrial to the south. There's also proposed industrial to the east. So all in all, that area generally will have a mix of uses. We are proposing residential attached, as defined in the comprehensive plan. That indicates it includes patio homes, duplexes, townhomes and garden apartments. And the comprehensive plan specifically identifies those types of uses as being good transitions between non-residential use and single-family neighbourhoods. So we have the Trails End single-family neighbourhood to the north, we have the open space, we have the mix of attached residential on the project that we're proposing, and then that transitions to the more intense recreational ice ring and mini storage to the south. We also, the comprehensive plan also encourages specifically residential attached because it will provide a mix of housing to serve the growing area workforce, and I think that's a really important component which I'm going to come on to a little bit more detail. And it just generally provides more affordable housing options for new homeowners, for empty nesters and so on. So here's a little bit of information about what I would argue is the need for more housing choice in Monument. The table at the top left is an extract directly from the comprehensive plan. And that shows that the single family there as a percentage, and I've included in that 90%, the 703 plus the 9 rural residential, and that's as a percentage of the existing housing stock. So that doesn't include the 1,002, just to make that clear, that doesn't include the 1,002 that's vacant. But as a proportion of existing housing stock in Monument, 90% is single family. To purchase, so I gave the price ranges, which were kind of 230 to 280 roughly for the combination of the townhomes and the attached product. And so, for example, to purchase a home of about 250,000, you would have to be earning a qualifying income for a household would be around 62,000. Now, in El Paso County, the average medium income is around just short of 74,000, but actually in this Monument area generally, and if you go on the new El Paso County Assessor's website, you can focus in on an area and it will give you information on median area income and house prices and so on. So in that general area, it's more in the region of 90,000 in Monument. So to purchase a $250,000 home, it would be somebody who's earning 68% of average median income. So this is your workforce. At the beginning salary for a police officer, I got that directly off the job advertisement on the town's website, was 46,000. Average high school teacher in elementary school was not much different, it was just around 60,000. So this is the workforce who need this type of housing in Monument. And as you can see from the graph on the right-hand side, there has been a huge increase in the average price of housing in Monument in the last year. It's gone up from 395,000. There's an extra zero on that. I apologise. I should have corrected that. I noticed that at Planning Commission. I forgot to correct it. And then it's gone up to 436,000, which is almost around a 10% increase in the last year. So we feel that this product that we're proposing on this property is meeting that need, and we also feel that it's doing it in a sympathetic manner, in that we are not trying to maximise the whole property. I think a lot of neighbours initially were concerned that we were developing the entire 35 acres. Obviously we have constraints with the mouse habitat, but we've respected that and the environment, and have come forward with a project which we feel will provide an important contribution to the housing market in Monument. And following that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Questions from the board?
I've got a handful, I guess we could start. Why annex in versus not annexing in? What would be the benefit to you, or the main benefit to you, for being annexed in versus continuing with the development without being annexed in?
Well, to continue with it's primarily access to services. So we would want access to the sanitation district services, and also the town's water services as well. So that's primarily the reason. There isn't anything that we could really use. If it stayed in the county, it's zoned as 5-acre residential lots, and so they'd be on well and septic, and there really wouldn't be any ability to do anything more dense.
So initially through the county it was zoned as 5-acre residential lots?
It's currently zoned as RR5 in the county, which is a rural residential zoning for 5-acre lots.
Okay.
And that's typical of generally in this area. It's anything that's kind of outside of the municipal areas are usually zoned RR5.
Especially looking back to the way things used to be versus where they are now. Probably
Exactly, yes.
some old zoning. So access to water, and you said there's adequate water rights that you'll be turning over. Looking through the packet, that's obviously aquifer rights.
Mm-hmm.
Aquifer rights are a big question and concern that's come up in front of this board over the past 2 years. My question would be, we've had multiple reports as far as different timelines on when those aquifers are going to run dry, specifically in our area. I think the latest one that I heard was somewhere in the 8 to 11 year range based on our current number of residences here. So just looking at the 34-acre lots, about half, 17 acres, are going to be developed with 131 units, 2 to 3 people per unit, an additional 400 to 600 people coming to a 17-acre area, approximately 8 to 10% increase in our total population of the entire Monument area. So that would include Tri-View and all the other metro districts around us. So I would say that would probably rapidly or more quickly deplete the aquifers that we're initially concerned about. So my question is, what happens when our aquifers run dry? Who's liable for that?
Well,
let me back that up. What happens when the folks who purchase these homes run out of water?
so initially there is no requirement for the town. The indication we have been given is a similar several years supply of water in Monument. So this water in this particular development will not be tapped into initially. So the town has the ability to utilise this water as and when they need it. And the indication we've been given from the town, based on their water engineers' reports to them, is that they have sufficient water in the foreseeable future, and that they will not required to draw on this water for some time. But in terms of liability, I would say that we have enough water to supply this project with the water that's available underneath the site, and I am not sure who would be liable. The decision is of the town to manage that water and utilise the water that's available to them as appropriate. But I would defer that to the town to answer that question. We have had discussions with your town engineer, your town attorney, and they have in turn discussed with their water engineer, and they've given a letter of advice on that. So
I understand. I appreciate that letter, and again, the aquifer rights, and the concern isn't necessarily that you aren't giving up aquifer rights to us to offset. The concern is that the aquifer that we're tapping into, whether it's our straw, whether it's Triview straw, whether it's Forest Lake straw, whether that aquifer is going to go dry. And the most recent estimates are 8 to 11 years. So my concern, being a 10% increase in population in a small-sized area, who's going to be liable when we run out of water? Not only for the new folks who purchased their homes, our workforce, if you will, but the residents who's called Monument home for the past 20 years. So who is legally responsible? Because we have a fiduciary and legal responsibility to provide our residents, that would include newly annexed residents, with water. So when we can't meet that need, what happens?
Well, in the agreement, you are agreeing to provide water. That's part of the agreement. So I'd have to talk to Bruce, I guess, and Bob Cross as well, the water lawyer, to talk about what would happen. I'm not familiar with some of the data that you're citing about how long we have for the aquifer, but what Bruce has said in this case is that there is sufficient water for this project.
And again, we have paper water and water. We've discussed that many times here. That would be something that I'd be curious to get an answer on as far as the legal responsibilities. Being a board, obviously, we have the ability to annex in for any reason or no reason at all, is how the Colorado Supreme Court puts it.
Trustee Koopman, Mr. Tharnish.
I have one more clarifying question.
Okay, but I think he has an answer to your question.
Okay.
When it comes to the legality of having enough water to supply these developments, it is indeed the town's responsibility to have extinction when the water runs out. Now, we have presented to this board on many occasions a plan involving reuse and potential renewable acquisition to supplement our current well capacity. This plan, if you look at a development like this is roughly about 10 to 10.5% increase in our current capacity, which is well within our wet water ability to serve. So this project does not cause any concern being able to supply them through full build out through the next 100 years, which is what the state has municipalities on board for. They give you, if you supply water for 100 years, if you're in a county, it's 300 years.
Correct, and we've had the discussion on the will serve and how our ability to legally provide that 100-year will serve right now relies solely on our ability to come up with a working plan that actually extends our renewable water base, which fortunately we are moving forward on. My concern is, because we're still in a very initial phase on anything when it comes to diversifying our water portfolio, if you will, outside of the aquifer base. My question simply, to clarify what you just said, so this project, an increase of 10% of our town's population, but really we're talking about a 1/7 increase of our west side water consumption in this area. You're saying that wouldn't have an impact on that 8 to 11-year window that we've been given before the aquifer is drawn to extinction?
Well, the 8 to 11, if I recall that was several years ago when we were talking about the current conditions based on our existing well, and we had a summer that were pretty choppy, we were in a little bit of a drought. And since that time alone, we have made several large gains when you're talking about water conservation and water efficiency. So I don't know if the 8 to 11 year life is truly what it is nowadays. I mean, I'm guessing it's a little longer than that. It all depends on how much water we use. And if we're smart about people's sprinkler systems and how they conserve and everything that we're putting forth, including the reuse and the renewable, I do not see us running a risk of potentially running out of water as long as we adopt the current policy that we're going after.
And to clarify what you said, just so I understood correctly, it is our responsibility, the town's responsibility, to fulfill that 100-year will serve, essentially a contract saying to the developer, we're going to provide your new residents with 100 years of water.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, additional questions from the board?
I have a question. In regards to annexing this property in, Has somebody taken a look, kind of a broad brush look at how much revenue this will help generate for the town with the tap fees?
I believe that is, I think that has been looked at, but I'm not 100% sure what that figure is.
Okay.
I could get that answer for you. I
Okay.
could come back to you with that answer.
That's just something to think about in regards to solving a regional long-term water solution, whether one more house or 1,000 more houses are built here. That would definitely help generate some revenue for putting the money towards our long-term water solution.
Certainly, yes.
Do you have additional questions?
No.
All right.
To build onto the impact fee question, Tom, what percentage of our future water projects come from impact fees?
From impact fees. I believe when we were doing our rate increase, we were looking at about 18 to 20 at the high end. So the rest of that is gonna come from future development. So you're gonna have to be in the 70 to 80% range.
I want to say with future development, it was about 55% of our future water projects.
It could be, there's a little bit of a factor in there depending on how quick things develop.
Okay. And then on the question of building in the county, that's still your water rights, correct, if you were to build in the county?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
So you could put the same straw in the same aquifer and suck it out
Yes.
for your own use anyways,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Additional comment, Trustee Bornstein.
Just a question, and Tom, maybe you can answer this. With it being a metro district, what services will the town be responsible for?
I believe the only thing the town's responsible for is the water mains and the maintenance of the road once the warranty period runs out.
And then police service too.
Yes, police will serve anything in municipal boundaries regardless of the district.
And then just a final question, I'd like the town manager's view on the metro district, or opinion.
I think it's organized in an appropriate way and that it provides financing for the initial public improvements, and then we take over the infrastructure once it's done and to our satisfaction, and then we maintain it, and we have another source of that would be the water sales. So this is a good deal for, at least from a revenue and infrastructure standpoint. We will not see what we've had problems with a couple of metro districts, if that's what you're getting at.
That's what I was.
This one is organized differently. It wouldn't happen.
Sure. Thank you, Mr.
You
Mayor.
bet. If there's no additional comments, I will bring it back to the board before we do have a final vote. But this is a public, or this is a ordinance, therefore we have input from the public. So is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on behalf of this ordinance? All right, hearing none. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Would you like to come forward and state your name and provide some, you raised your hand on behalf of this ordinance, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
very good.
Nancy Swearingen, 418 Trailhead Road. Good evening, everyone. Of course, I'm going to come off the top. I understand that. I think that based on what we were talking about on Saturday, that this is providing a lot of options. Just what was discussed on Saturday about, yes, you raised the police officers' wages to $52,000, but that didn't meet really any criteria for them being able to buy any housing. So this looks like a nice option. If anybody's been down to Gold Hill, you can go through that area, and it's a really nice development. That they've done a good job with that type of community. I am a little disturbed, Mr. Koopman. You're up there talking about the water and everything, but every time we talk about water and talk about the reuse facility, you do nothing but dig your heels in and prevent that from happening. So if you're so concerned about the water, let's keep moving forward on the reuse facility instead of being obstructionists. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public who would like to speak on behalf of this ordinance? Yes, sir. Please come forward and state your name. There's a sign-in sheet if you would,
Okay,
please.
thank you. Andrew Sherman. I own the ice rink next door. and I am in favor of this project. And I think it would be a good opportunity for the area. And I just wanted to come here and show our support for Mr. Biggs and his project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward.
Terry Hayes with the Tri Lakes Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Corporation. Normally, we comment typically on the businesses. However, as you know, attainable housing is very scarce up here. And one of the #1 things that I hear from my businesses is they cannot find enough workforce. People are not going to drive from Castle Rock, or they're not going to drive from the Springs for a $12 to $15 an hour position, which is what a lot of our restaurants are getting, what a lot of our other retail spaces, and our largest employer in the area, Johnson & Johnson, that has consistently 30 to 40 positions that they need to fill, and they cannot. And so I think this is going to encourage more people to be able to take some of these lower paying positions because they can stay in our community and not have that large commute, and that's just going to be better for everybody. And they're going to spend their dollars here too, so those people are going to increase our tax base, which is great too. So we are definitely for it.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else from the public who would like to speak on behalf of this ordinance? All right, hearing none. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak against this ordinance? All right, hearing none. Before I bring it back to the board, do you have any rebuttals that you would like to make for questions, comments, what you've heard so far?
I would just like to follow up on the question of the tap fees. It's approximately $1.5 million.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you,
Appreciate
ma'am.
that. That was very fast.
Appreciate that. All right, I think I closed public comments, so I will bring it back to the board for additional comments and questions. Let's make sure everybody has a chance. Trustee Medlicott, would you like to?
Just a follow-up question for Tom. We get a well site with this annexation. With our upgrading our alluvial well system, do you foresee at full build-out for this needing that well site?
I do not have any plans to look at drilling a well there, typically because of the location. I'm a little skittish of anything near the Baptist Road corridor, because that's where a lot of our radium issues originate from.
Okay.
It was not only us, it's Triview, it's Denala, it's Forest Lakes, all these wells that are in that area have the same radium issue. So a lot of times I would rather look at, our next well would be more to the north, but it's a requirement to dedicate a well site for most developments that come in. So we always never want to say no. So there needs to be a site dedicated, and if we have to in the future, if we're forced to do that, we will have a site available for that. That's all I got.
All right, Trustee Murphy.
I believe that the plan that was presented is just very, very good, very solid. I like what I see. The water issue is something that, for me, it's the top priority. And I'm not convinced, I guess, where we're going to be in 2018. You're going to do sampling, you're going to do testing, the alluvial well option that we talked about, the 5-year plan that we put into the resolution that was passed. That's all been approved. I'm still concerned. You know, I know a year ago we had a reuse option. It turned out not to be the one we're pursuing now because we had a better idea. I'd like to see something tangible, and we can't get there from here right now. So it's the only downside for me, but it's a big downside, is the question on the water side. I want to see something that makes me convinced what we've laid out this time is in fact real, and it's going to be something to be substantially improve our water for the long term. So anyway, but the plan itself, everything has been said, and I understand very well what we were talking about and heard in a second about affordable housing. Got it. This is beautiful. I'm worried about water. That's all I've got to say.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
I'm good, thank you.
Trustee Elliott.
I'm concerned about water as well, but whether we build one more house or 1,000 more houses, we have a regional water problem that we have to address regionally, period, and we need to start now. So that is obviously something that is in the background, but that is something, whether this development goes in or not, is something we've got to do, period. So I just want to make that point, so maybe we could, as a board, can get moving on our water issues pretty quickly here within the first quarter of 2018.
Any other comments,
No.
questions? Trustee Elliott, or Trustee Koopman, sorry.
You bet. Obviously, I share the concern about water, again, as a priority. I think we've made great progress, and I am optimistic that we will continue to make progress with that 5-year plan that we unanimously supported. Am I so confident enough to guarantee 600 new residents water for 100 years when the reality is, the answer is we're liable, not only as a town, but as a board making these decisions with this information. We are liable if something goes wrong, and if we run out of water. We collectively, as well as possibly individually, based on our decisions, can be held liable and sued and held accountable for that. I commend you with bringing affordable housing, but a more affordable option to housing to the community. That $230 to $290 price range is phenomenal. My concern isn't the price range. My concern is the density in which you wish to put 131 units in a 17-acre spot. At the end of the day, I was elected to represent the people of this community. The people of this community overwhelmingly voiced their vision in our most recent updated comprehensive plan, and very, very clearly stated what they do not want and what they do not support is high density housing. And when you look at this type of density, I would question whether or not this type of project is in substantial compliance with that comprehensive plan and the vision of the people of this community.
Further comments?
No, thank you.
Questions? Trustee Bornstein.
I was just gonna make a motion since I'm the last guy.
Well, I haven't had a chance to give
Oh, well,
comments.
please.
Well, but I was going to let you speak, and then I have some questions, comments before I call for a vote.
I think on our conversations over the weeks and months, I think this is a good development for the community, and we can't control the cost of housing and the rising costs, but I think this is a start. I think it's a great location, and it opens the door and opportunity for those that can't afford the $300,000 and $400,000 homes. So I'm pleased with it. My colleague making comment on the regional water and what we do. We have to put it in gear and start doing something. Fortunately, we do have a window. It's not happening overnight, but I have faith in what Mr. Tom is telling us as far as we do have years, but we have to do something now, or it's going to affect everybody. But I do feel we'll get that done.
All right, very good, thank you. A few comments and then questions. So a very good price point. We talked about that on Saturday. Ms. Swearinger gave a presentation. Really was a interested perspective on how we can help our employees and residents here. And I think this really kind of hits what she had to say squarely. So I congratulate you on that. Question, the annex for the, is the annexation, does that include the mouse habitat? Okay, it does, all right. Just wanted to understand that. Very nice pictures. I think they would clearly add to the community. Yeah, I got that question. Ms. Corley, do you have any comments, advice for the board on legal issues? Anything you would like to say or present to the board?
No, I've worked with the applicant on the annexation agreement for quite a long time, so I think we're in a good spot. And Larry Manning has also been working on the annexation agreement to make sure we could present something to you that we could recommend.
Okay. Ms. Barlow, any, do you have projections for residents for the Metro District, what they might anticipate for their water? Is it comparable to what the town has or the other metro districts. Do you have any color for us on that?
So if I could address that, my name
Yes,
is
sir.
Terry Biggs. Our metro district is not going to have anything to do with water or sewer sanitation. It's purely a bonding district.
Okay.
And it will also have a component of it that should work, if we can work through the legal aspects of it, should work to function as an HOA as well, so that we would not have an HOA. What we're finding through legal advice today is that metro districts are functioning very well in an environment if they're structured correctly up front, because they have a taxing authority and ability to tax, where HOAs don't have a taxing authority and they have to use HOA dues, and their income stream isn't as guaranteed as a metro district. So with the metro district, we would be able to fold all of those pieces into the metro district and maintain it. You've already approved one of those, maybe more, but Lake of the Rockies Metro District is structured in a similar way and is functioning, I would say, in a very effective, meaningful way. And I think has proven that. So, yeah, the Metro District would have nothing to do with the water, and the water fees would then be charged by Monument Water District.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hayes, thank you so much for your comments. Businesses, when we want to attract them, they do look out for their employees. And they want to understand what the cost of housing is. And so for young professionals, this price point is certainly something that would certainly be attractive to getting people in here. I know we've heard at least I've heard for years, our school teachers lament they just can't live in our area because that's a difficult thing for them to hit. You said the Planning Commission did approve this, Mr. Manning?
Yes, sir.
Did they have any additional comments that you wanted to share?
No, the Planning Commission recommended unanimously.
Okay.
With staff's recommendations.
So you worked very closely with the Planning Commission to make sure everything was understood and to put the town and the residents in the best position possible?
Certainly.
All right, very good. Thank you, sir. As I've looked at the comprehensive plan, certainly this is one of the areas of growth, and this is one of the areas where we have seen as an area that is a problem for the town, and that's affordable housing. I too am extremely concerned about water, and I would agree that that is something that we do need to understand. But there's a saying, being penny wise and pound foolish. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money, and in this area, sometimes you have to increase your revenues in order to get the funding necessary to implement the three-pronged strategy which we have tried to implement over the years of reuse, renewable options, and conservation. So I think that is clearly something that is important for all of us. We've all heard various reports how much water we have in reserve. I've heard conflicting reports to what has been given here. Many reports have gone even higher. So unfortunately, we just don't know on that. This establishment, or this community, is going to go in whether because they live in the county or not. So the issue before us really is, do we want to lose that tax revenue? Do we want to lose that fee base? Do we want to lose the ability to control the streets and other amenities, the parks and things? Because if it goes into the county, they in no way will have the stringencies and the requirements that we would like to have to make sure that this community adds to our town and adds to what we have here. I think that's it. Trustee Bornstein, you said you'd like to make a motion.
Yes, motion to pass ordinance 22-2017, an ordinance approving the annexation, plan development, zoning, and preliminary PD site plan of an area known as Wagons West Edition Number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan, would you take roll, please?
Trustee Murphy?
No.
Mayor Kaiser?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Medlicott?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
No.
Trustee Elliott?
Yes.
That motion passes 5-2. Ms. Smith, ordinance 23-2017, an ordinance adopting the budget for the town of Monument. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Good evening, thank you. As we discussed on Saturday with the proposed budget, everything that we agreed upon is in this final budget. We're just basically taking the proposed and making it. So we do have to have a public hearing if anybody wants to comment on this budget before it comes to the board to be passed.
Very good. Before I go to the public, do we have additional questions, comments for Ms. Smith from the board?
Just one question. On the conversations at the latter part of our meeting, I personally didn't understand when we were talking about the electronic ticketing. Was that going to be rolled in? Was it not? What was the decision? Because I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
It wasn't rolled into the budget, but it is to be considered when we get a budget committee going and talk about other projects that we can afford to roll in as the year goes on. It is not in this current budget. It's not financed. It's in here, but it's not financed.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? All right, I'll open this up to the public. This is a public ordinance, or this is an ordinance requesting public input. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on behalf of this ordinance? Hearing none, is there anyone who would like to speak against this ordinance? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the board for additional comments and/or a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 23-2017, an ordinance adopting a budget for the town of Monument, Colorado, beginning on the first day of January 2018 and ending on the last day of December 2018.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan, would you take roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Bendicott?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Mayor Kaiser?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Ms. Smith, ordinance 24-217.
Thank you. Now that you've passed the budget, we have to appropriate sums of money to the various funds so that the state will allow us to spend the money to fulfill the budget. So ordinance 24-2017 is an ordinance allocating expenditures to the different funds as noted in the exhibit.
All right. Questions, comments from the board? All right, hearing none, we'll open this to the public. Anyone wishing to speak on behalf of this ordinance? Anyone wishing to speak against this ordinance? All right, hearing none, we will close the public discussion, bring it back to the board for additional discussion and/or a motion.
A motion to approve ordinance 24-2017, an ordinance appropriating sums of money to the various funds for the town of Monument, Colorado, beginning on the first day of January 2018 and ending on the last day of December 2018.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan, would you take roll, please?
Mayor Kaiser?
Yes.
Trustee Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein? Trustee Bendicott?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Ms. Smith, resolution 35-17, a resolution to authorize the certification of the property tax mill.
Now that you've passed the budget and the appropriations, we can pass the mill levy. This has to be the county by December 15th, as required by CRS 395128-1. The mill levy for year 2017, budget year 2018, will be 6.225 mils. This is a one-time reduction from the 6.289 that's been passed by the public. This is about the 5.5% property tax revenue limit and tabor restriction. So the absolute maximum amount that we can collect on property tax from homes is $893,834, which produces this mill levy that's a little bit lower than what we've had in the past. This has happened once since I've been here before, and it has a lot to do with growth. So that's why it went down. But it is a one-time reduction.
You hope.
I hope. You're right, I do.
So a government entity is actually lowering a tax rate. Wow. Good. Questions, comments from the board? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion?
How can we not?
A motion to pass resolution 35-2017, a resolution to authorize the certification of the property tax mill levy for the to the El Paso County Assessor for fiscal year 2017, budget year 2018, beginning the first day of January 2018 and ending on the last day of December 2018.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan, would you take roll, please?
Trustee Bornstein? Trustee Medlicott?
Yes.
Mayor Kaiser?
Yes.
Trustee Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Public comments for items that were not on the agenda per Municipal Code 2.04.030 J2B. Public comments shall be limited to 3 minutes or less. Anybody from the public wishing to address the board? All right, hearing none, we will close. Oh, yes, sir. You got to be quick.
Evening all. Well, I got like 4 pages of issues that are going on. I'm obviously not going to be able to address all of them, but I'd like to start out saying that recently with this raise that was approved, in the manner in which it was approved, kind of is a volatile situation. We've discussed it as a public works facility. We decided we're not going to allow this to be a rift between 2 different departments. As we understand, it's based on the fact that the dangers that the police face. I agree that wholeheartedly. They face danger every day. I come from a family of police officers in which 3, my grandfather and my 2 uncles were killed in the line of duty. Do these guys deserve a raise? Absolutely. One of the things I think the board is failing to see is that every one of the public works facility people out there faces danger every day. Every day. From the time for these guys get called out, you know, there was a comment that was made at one of the public budget workshops about us being, what was it, 8-to-5ers, I believe it was called, and then we're way overpaid as being 8-to-5ers. There's none of them that are 8-to-5ers. We're called out at 2, 3 in the morning on slippery, treacherous roads. We deal with all kinds of dangers. The public works facility between the streets department that has to go out there and stand in the street and direct traffic when 7 out of 10 cars are running these stop signs. And that's a real dangerous job. I don't think that the Public Works Department is being appreciated for who they are. The pay grade, to take one pay grade, and as I understand it, the pay grade that was decided upon was for a big city pay grade to go for the police. I'm all for that. Why is it that the Public Works Department is based on a small city pay grade? How is that ethical? How is that fair to us? How is that supposed to promote any of us to do our job correctly and to be positive about doing it? Half the time, nobody understands what's going on with the Public Works Department, for instance. For instance, those monitors sitting in front of you guys right now, those fancy little monitors, the bill on them, to have them professionally installed is over $12,000. With Drew's purchasing finesse, with my installation capabilities, we put all that system in for $1,800. Saved the town over $10,000. Pat on the back, yeah, but living in this town for what it costs to live here, it's practically impossible on the wages that we're paid. And then to have that slap in the face with the way that was set up, that's not correct. I really urge that you guys take a look at what the pay grade is for the rest of the public works guys that are out there. Jim Schubauer, the parks guy, he does the work of 3 men. He is out there every day, day in, day out. You look at the Christmas lights, you look at the parking lots, you look at all of the walls, retaining walls he builds, flawless. The guy does absolutely a fantastic job. He's way underpaid for what he's doing. That's basically what I got to say about that part of it. I think you understand where I'm coming from. I urge you to take a look at what it is. I'm fluent in 30 fields. In everything from heating, plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, carpentry work, fabrication. I'm a master fabricator in welding. I build a lot of stuff for the town. Just this year alone, I've got listed right here $20,000 worth of savings that I've saved the town on stuff that I have built, thought outside the box. One other thing, can run another minute, is this saying that this public works facility could be put off for 3 to 4 years. You guys, most of you have never been into the departments that we work in. You have no idea how dangerous it is in there, how much equipment is stacked on top. If there's ever a fire in there, there's a high potential that people won't be able to get out of that building, and there's going to be lawsuits for lack of due diligence in taking care of your employees. And another thing is, the way it's set up, the fabrication table has welders, plasma cutters, propylene cutters. They all throw off a tremendous amount of sparks. 10 feet away from the automotive shop where the guys are doing work with oils, gasoline, with lubrication, potentially flammable explosive items that are there. Well, sure, we use protective screens to catch the sparks. It only catches 25% of it. It's a dangerous situation. I would urge you guys to come in and take a look at what we're dealing with every day. None of you have, well, Don, you've been in, you've seen what our Public Works meeting room looks like. That's dilapidated, it's 30 years old. There's fiberglass falling off the walls covered in soot from the diesel emissions. The toilet in there is so dilapidated, every time you flush it, it dumps human waste on the floor, contaminating the whole floor inside of the building. Most of the people don't even use it because it's that bad. So to say that this is not something that needs to be done now, I wholeheartedly disagree. You know, I put my all into everything for this town. I've lived in the town for 30 years, and I've worked for the town for about 4 years, and I can say that I'm pretty disappointed in the way that we're being treated and being looked at and the way that we're being paid. Try living in this town on the kind of money that these guys are doing. That's why most of the younger guys live out of town. There's no way that they can afford to live here. So, that being said, I've got a lot more. I will be back.
All right, very
Thank
good.
you for hearing me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Ann Howe. Just wanted to remind the board and the public that there's 2 CDOT input meetings coming up. One on December 5th in Castle Rock. That's at the county fairgrounds. And then in Colorado Springs on December 7th. And that is, both of them are from 5 to 7 p.m. Let's see. And the Colorado Springs meeting is at the El Paso County CERT building on Mark Dabbling. This is the public's opportunity to make their opinions known and to also get further updates on the expansion of the gap from Monument to Castle Rock. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Additional comments from the public? Ms. Swearinger.
Dovetailing in on what the gentleman just said, I don't think there's anybody in this room that disagrees about the officers getting their raise. I would ask Mr. Bornstein if he was so adamant about those police officers getting their raise, why there was some reason this was not brought up back in August or September, so there could have been adequate time for the trustees and the town to be able to work on a budget and not have to do it like in a 1 or 2 week period right before the budget is due to get into everyone so that it can be approved. If you're that adamant about it, and if it's such a hot topic for you, you should have been thinking about this back in August and September and allowed everybody to have time to properly address it instead of making it into a crisis situation right before budget. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? All right, hearing none, we will close public comments and proceed with board authorization items. Mr. Manning, you had an item before us.
Yeah, I've been working for some time with the EA and TriView on the situation over there. That's what has delayed the landscaping, which is guaranteed to go in MVEA. They're ready to go. We've got a tentative framework of an arrangement between TriView, the town, and MVEA to get additional screening and landscaping on the TMD site, not just the MVEA. And that's what I wanted presented was the parameters. Doesn't have to be done right away, but the information will come forward.
Do you have a time frame that you'd like to present?
I was anticipating doing it at the next meeting.
Okay. Is the board okay with that? All right. That'd be great. Thank you, sir.
Mayor Kaiser, I had one just to add. It was suggested that potentially we cancel December 18th, the board meeting, the regularly scheduled December 18th board meeting. So that would be obviously something that the board would need to consider. I informally polled the staff, and the only concern is that Tom Tharnish would like to know then if we were to cancel the 18th, if he could bring forward a resolution awarding a contract for the water plants, 4 and 5 upgrades. Sorry, I didn't say that right. But a resolution authorizing the contract, and he could bring that then to the January 2nd meeting if we were to decide to cancel December.
Is that okay with the board if we do cancel this meeting? I see enough heads nodding that gives a majority. That'd be great. All right. And how do you propose, just through email to see if we'll cancel that?
Well, if you all agree right now, we can.
All right. I see 4 heads at least, 5 heads nodding, so
There were 7.
consider it done. I didn't see his nod, so I wasn't going to. All right, then consider that one canceled. Is there anything else from the board that we would like to see brought forward? All right. Triview Metropolitan District Report. Mr. Lowe, do you have any color for us on that?
I do. I spoke with Jim McGrady last, I think it was Tuesday. There was they were working on some last minute chip seal on Jackson Creek Parkway south of Higby, and had a crew that was supposed to be done at 2. They didn't stop. They went till 6. That created a large backup. The only reason I know that I was dropping my son off for basketball, but so I was in it with everyone else. But anyway, there was a bit of a hiccup there. The nice thing is that I called Jim. Jim and I had a discussion about it the next day. He was back to me reporting what happened. The contractor had been instructed to stop at 2, did not, and so they were trying to beat some weather, but I guess the positive of that is that we were speaking to them about that. Turned out that they did take some disciplinary action toward the folks that weren't listening. And what I would also tell you is I've already met with him twice. Met with him last week on a different issue of water with respect to some regional options that we may have. I would like to just point out that we have a really open, honest dialogue. It's very nice to be able to pick up the phone and know Jim's going to answer. And he actually calls me sometimes, which is shocking, at least when he calls from the office. But no, we have I'm just very hopeful for that relationship. And obviously he was apologetic, and I said he didn't need to be. But he was, and he wanted me to make sure that you all knew that was something that he was upset about and would have communicated, and that they were actually thinking they just had a contract and not quite grab it. And I see one of their board members out there who's probably smiling, going, "Yeah, I heard about that too." So anyway, we just have a great early working relationship, and have some things going on the water that I will give you all a much deeper discussion when we get into the new year.
Excellent.
That's the best news I've heard tonight.
So it's safe to say we've had a 180-degree phase shift in relations?
Yeah, or maybe 360, 720.
No, 360, we'd be back where we were.
Okay, 720.
No, 180.
I'm a lawyer, not an engineer.
Very good. All right, Board of Trustee comments.
I'd just like to say, again, I am satisfied with how we've made some progress on some key issues here in the past few meetings. For those who have not heard, this board unanimously directed the creation of a compensation committee moving forward to not only include the trustees but also key employees, and I would imagine it would make sense to include individuals from all departments, as well as the desire to have a comprehensive review of the entire employee staff's compensation. So that is something that we have taken to heart in this process for the police officers' raise, and I look forward to the continued dialogue with that to see if we can better reward all of our employees from each department. So thank you, everybody.
Additional comments from the board? Yes, sir, Trustee Barnsdale.
To thank Madeline and Tom's staff. The lighting of the tree was amazing. Probably, I think, the biggest turnout. There had to have been over 300 people, and Santa and Mrs. Claus, they were barricaded with kids, if I'm correct. So, again, it gets better and better every year, so thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Mr. Lowe, when will we see what is next for the public service facility or the public works facility? Or what do we need to do?
It's a great question. The last time we spoke of this, there was a majority of this board that told us that you didn't ever want to hear about it again. And so right now, we don't have any authorization of staff to bring that up to you. I know there were at least 4 people who said they didn't want us to talk about that anymore, which is what we've been doing. So that's all we would really need is if you all want us to, start that process up and maybe take a fresh look at it. We certainly are more than willing to do it and would be excited to do that. And we would probably want to include that in analysis of the other CIP items, which we discussed, but this board took action on the water CIP, but not on the other issues, because we didn't present them to you. So if you want us to circle back and give you a presentation, we're more than happy to do that, but we needed a majority of the board to tell us that that's what you wanted.
Those items wouldn't be included in the finance, it would make a larger.
Well, that's certainly on my recommended CIP for general fund operation. One of more, several, but we were holding off on that until folks wanted to hear from us on that again.
Do we have an agreement from the board to move forward?
Well, I guess I've got a question. I thought you were proposing some sort of a committee which was going to look at options for how to move forward on the Public Works project. I guess I'm
Well, I
confused.
proposed that recently. The last time we talked about the Public Works facility, a majority of this board told us, don't ever bring this to us again.
Well, I don't remember that. What I do remember was we talked about, couldn't you work it in a modular fashion? Couldn't you work it in a, incremental, as opposed to doing a $3 million project in 1 year? Which
Yes, that's correct.
I guess I didn't hear the meeting where there was a direction, don't ever bring it up again, because I never would have. I mean, I would have at least talked about it, and I'm surprised, that's all.
Well, we certainly are able to discuss that as staff and bring that back forward to you, but we had pretty clear direction that wasn't going to be discussed. Now, recently, we've talked about a public facilities committee.
Yeah.
Which, and that was my idea along with this compensation committee, but of course, that's going to take work on board members' part and understand that we're going to need to have a couple of you that will be very deeply involved in an individual project or individual analysis that then you would be able to inform your other board members. So in terms of moving forward on a CIP that would include the Public Works facility, I absolutely would love it if a couple of you would volunteer and do a public facilities and just a general CIP, because we didn't have very good consensus, which is nothing wrong with that. So that would be a great way, I think, for us to kind of reset and come at it in a different direction this time. So if you'd like to do that, we would absolutely love that.
So, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, could you restate the request and let's make sure we have board consensus on that?
Well, are we asking to move forward with the committee now?
Yeah, that's a horse design or camel design, horse design by camel, some kind of committee, but we don't necessarily need an official committee created.
Or do we just need an agreement to move forward on?
Re-looking at the
I guess what
facility.
I would like is authorization by you to move forward on looking at all of those general fund CIP things and bringing back to your consideration, understanding that we would like to have the input of a couple of members as we do that.
Yes.
I'm seeing at least 5 heads nod, so you have agreement, sir.
All right, well, 2 of you are going to have to fall on the sword at some point.
If nobody else volunteers, I'd be glad to sit in on that.
I'd be more than happy to use my expertise.
I'll be glad to.
Sounds
That's
like
way more than 2.
Very good. That'd be great.
Why don't I just send out an email to you all and we'll see
Great.
who might want to serve in that capacity.
That'd be fantastic.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Additional comments, questions from the board?
Since we decided to not have another December meeting, can we put on board authorization items, discussion of the budget committee and compensation committees for the January 2nd?
I'd like to see that. I think, we have agreement from the board on that.
And I just want to say thank you, Ms. Smith, for your budgetary expertise this second time around for me.
It's a group effort.
Well, hopefully we can get this budget committee rolling and we'll not be so, It'll
Because
be
you
much
locked
easier next
yourself
time.
in Saturday and then didn't leave until yesterday, right?
Nobody goes to that corner of the building.
Additional comments from the board? All right, Mr. Tharnish, lights on Second Street look great. Thank you, sir. The little intersection of Beacon Light and Second looks fantastic. The intersection of Third Street and Beacon Light looks fantastic. All that you guys have done is fantastic. Mr. Tharnish, what was that gentleman's name? He didn't state his name, and I've not had the opportunity to meet that gentleman.
Monty.
What's it, Monty?
Monty,
Okay, it's too bad Monty's not here. He has clearly chastised the board, rightfully so. For you guys to be operating in that filth, you can't even flush the toilet, you have feces on the floor, that's unconscionable. I'm disgusted that you have been forced into that situation. I just have one vote on that, but that is unconscionable. This board has been duly chastised, and I think Monty was totally correct in doing that. One of the concerns that I've always had is, if we're going to make the pay equitable for our police force, which is right and justifiable, that we have other employees. And I know that our Public Works Department puts their lives on the line as well. And I want to thank them personally for all that they do and for the services that they provide. He's 100% correct. They need to be considered in that. I'm hoping that this compensation committee will understand that and that we can address a wrong that it clearly needs to be fixed. So I thank him for taking the time and the effort and the courage to come forward and chastise this board, because we deserve it. That's all I have. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.